Hey everybody, welcome back to Throttle Grotto. It is rallycross weekend, the first practice event of the season, and I'm still in the driveway. Find out why on this episode of Throttle Grotto. Alright everybody, so I was supposed to be out doing a shakedown run on the NX this weekend, and I am still in the driveway. Not because of the snow, which is still piled up around it, but because there's something drastically wrong with the car, and I need to figure out what it is because there's a race in 2 weeks. So last night I went to back it out of the driveway and get it all lined up to put it on a tow dolly to take down to the event today, and it made horrible sounds. It ran for about 5 minutes, and then it shut off, and now it doesn't want to start. I'm suspecting the starter's bad, but I really don't know. I can turn it over by hand, which tells me that it's there's nothing drastically wrong with the engine, but it did act like valves and pistons were occupying the same space at different times. So first thing I'm going to do is pull the skid plate back off, which I just got mounted, and I am going to pull the starter out and take a look at it. So let's get to that point and check out this starter. It's on the back of the engine underneath the car, so it's like in the worst position, like compared to Volkswagens, which I'm used to. It's right in the front. You just pull it out and you're done. So this one will be kind of a process. Alright, so I managed to extract the starter from its... it's actually not as bad as I expected it to be. Let me show you. Probably won't be able to see, but there is, right down in here, is one of the bolts for the starter, and the other one is down in here. So if you pull the air box and all the hoses out, it's actually not too bad to get to. And then you just have to undo, there's a clip connector on the starter and let's see here. So there's a little quick connect wire right there, and then the wire from the battery cable there, and that's really all there is to pulling a starter on this car. It's just, you have to be up in the air to do it. So I'm going to hook it to the battery that I have here that's all charged up and see if I get anything out of it, but most likely I'm going to take it to the auto parts store and have them test it. It's kind of suspicious because it's already got a replacement starter in this car, so I don't know why this one died. It looks like it's probably a reman. So I don't know why this one died. It looks like it's already been remanned once. It's definitely not the original starter. So I'll test it, and then we'll see about getting a new starter and then put everything back together and see where we end up. Alright, so good news. No, it's not good news. I went and had the starter tested at a local parts store, and it works fine. So I guess the next thing to check is the engine timing, and to do that I'm gonna have to pull the valve cover and a bunch of other stuff. So that's the next that's the next job. All right everybody. I look ridiculous because I'm all bundled up and it's like 40 degrees or something, like 35 degrees and raining out right now. So I'm soaking wet. I decided that since the starter was good, I'd throw it back in and crank it over, and with a completely charged battery, make sure everything's good. And the start. So when I was cranking it over, it was broke, which means there's an issue with one of the cylinders, because it was 1, 2, 3, nothing. 1, 2, 3, nothing. So I pulled the plugs and looked at all the plugs. Looked at the plugs. There is the plug for cylinder number 1. I don't know if we'll be able to focus on it. Here is the plug for cylinder number 2. And I don't know if you can tell, but it's like completely covered in oil. Those plugs shouldn't be this black just from like hanging out and running in the driveway too. But yeah, the other ones are just covered in soot, which isn't a big deal. But number 2, when it came out, was completely covered in oil. So pulled the plugs, looked down in the cylinders, and you can see something. You can see standing oil in the number 2 cylinder. So I've hooked up my little Mighty Vac, and I'm going to try to get the camera out of the rain. And then we are going to simultaneously suck what is ever in cylinder number 2 out with my Mighty Vac and inspect it. So let's check this out. Alright, so the verdict is that is pure gasoline that is in the cylinders. So apparently one of the injectors that I replaced has gone bad and is now going full duty cycle on cylinder number 2. So, yeah. And that'll hydrolock a cylinder and cause it to not turn over. So that is why I am not at the rallycross today, because I put in inexpensive injectors and apparently one of them has pooped the bed. So I got to experience removing a starter from one of these cars in case I have to do it in the future, which I hope that I don't have to. And now that I found out that I have a bad injector, I am going to replace that and put the car back together, and hopefully it will run. So, and hopefully it doesn't keep raining on me like it has been, because I am drenched. So, Alright, so I replaced the injector, got everything put back together, and I'm going to hop in real quick and see if it runs. So that can only mean one thing. I forgot to hook something up. I'm going to go and do some more investigating and see what I didn't hook up correctly and try it again. Alright everybody, I just got home from work after a long 12-hour day at work. But I have a new coil. It is already dark out, so I'm not going to bore you with the details of swapping it in, but I'm going to run out. It should only take me a couple of minutes to snap this coil in. It's just a, whoa, don't drop a brand new coil. It's just got a connection on the bottom, connection on the top, and then a couple of bolt holes that hold it to the engine. So I'm going to go pop it in and see if this works. Alright everybody, so there's a giant no on the Datsun running tonight. I did test for spark. I have spark. I did have fuel. I've got to do a little homework and figure out why. It would appear that the injectors aren't firing, but I didn't drag out my Noid light to actually plug into one of the injectors. plugs and see if the injector is firing. Maybe I'll do that tomorrow night before I leave on my trip, but unfortunately the Datsun's not going to run until I get back from my work trip. So next week will be a huge scramble in getting the Datsun running and getting it to its first rallycross event. Good morning, everybody. So I found out my work trip got canceled because of snow, which is a good thing for me and the rallycross car, because now I have some time to work on it before I have to go back to work this weekend. So what I think is happening is the injectors aren't firing. So I've got this Noid light kit. Basically they're little, I don't know if you can see them on the packaging, but they're little tiny LEDs basically that plug into the fuel injector harness, and then you just turn the car over and it tells you if the injectors are firing or not. So pretty handy little tool to have around the shop. They're not very expensive. I think you can pick them up on Amazon pretty cheap. I think this was like 20 bucks at the local auto parts store. And this will be like the second time I've used it, so it's a good thing to have around. So I'm going to go uncover the car and I'm going to plug this test light into the injector harness and see what I can come up with. Alright everybody, so I got the Nissan running. The unfortunate part of it is that the Nissan is not running very well at all. Most likely due to bad timing, which jumped, I suspect, at idle the other day. I was able to get the injector stuff figured out. So what we have here is a junkyard SR20, which I will be installing this weekend and getting ready to go race next weekend. So that is the end of this episode. And I am going to immediately start working on next week's episode, which will be hopefully this car running and driving onto a tow dolly and heading off to do a rallycross. So thank you guys for watching. Wish me luck, because this week's going to be hectic. Getting this engine installed, running, converted from automatic to manual, and hopefully nothing is wrong with this one. So I'll keep my fingers crossed this whole week, and hopefully you guys do too. So until next week, just like I'm gonna do, get out there and work on something.